is the latest evolution of laser vision correction. It's really the third degree of laser vision correction. The idea being that can you do better than the other two? Or at least as well, but have some extra advantages. And yes, PRK and LASIK have been around for quite some time, and they produce very predictable and good results, and have become very acceptable and very excellent ways to provide vision correction and be free of glass and contact lenses. But there's always a better way to slice a pie. And with SMILE, the idea is we are preserving as much of the most integral structure of the cornea as possible. So the cornea being a simplified way a sandwich, two tough layers, one tough layer on top, one tough layer at the bottom, with a somewhat softer layer, less important to the structural integrity of the cornea in between. We're really only working in that in-between layer. We're using the same lasers that would, in our instance, cut the flap for LASIK, using no more energy than we use for the flap cut to create a little sliver of tissue within that inner layer, which is then removed through a very small side cut. The beauty of it is it preserves the tough layers and the toughness, so there is significantly less structural potential weakening of the cornea, albeit that it's been not an issue for all the LASIK patients, but still it intuitively is a better approach in that sense, because all the nerves which are relevant to the lubrication of the eye are in that front tough layer, because only a few of them are cut rather than most of them, as was LASIK or even with PRK. There are far fewer nerves to regrow, so there's some dryness. Any procedure, me looking at your eye probably will cause some dryness, but there is far less dryness and far faster recovery in terms of getting over that initial dryness post-operatively. In that sense, they're quite distinctly different. By leaving the tough layer intact, it will certainly theoretically, and so far the 10-year data out of Europe seem to support that very strongly, result in better long-term stability, because there is nothing to change or soften, because anything that was tougher was LASIK. You create that flap weakens that tough layer, and that toughness will never quite come back. So it's not surprisingly that 10 years out, at least the average, if anything, there's a slight improvement in the average visual acuity with SMILE, and that's really not something that we were actually expecting or see with the other laser vision correction means. We're hoping to maintain stability, but there's actually a slight improvement over the years to come, at least from the European data. So that is, if nothing else, encouraging and certainly quite reassuring. Then if you think about the other laser vision corrections, to reshape the cornea we have to remove tissue. With PRK and LASIK, that tissue is literally vaporized. So there has to be a fair bit of energy spent to achieve that. With SMILE, there's no vaporization, so there is no extra energy put in the eye. So from an energy perspective, from a possibility to get inflammation, which God forbid could lead to some form of, albeit rarely with modern laser vision correction, haze or some other issue, there's really no possibility of that using that approach. Lastly, from a practical perspective, not a huge issue, but still, when you are vaporizing the tissue with LASIK and SMILE, even with the most modern techniques of vacuuming off and making the vapors disappear, there's a very slight burn smell. With SMILE, you don't have any of that. And it's an all integral, it's all done on one laser, and overall it's a slightly faster procedure time. It's all in one machine rather than having to do it with two machines, one that cuts a flap and one that reshapes a cornea. As for your activities afterwards, because there's no moving parts, there's no flap, there's nothing that can really dislocate. Yes, when you use a curved flap cutter like we do, it'd be quite unlikely that the LASIK flap gets dislocated, and I'd be very surprised, but there's always some remote possibility. Whereas with SMILE, there's nothing that can move, change, or alter or change or be affected by trauma. So there's really no limitation to your activities. Yes, like you'd not go in a swimming pool for 24 hours, and not that I have personal experience of putting on mascara, but I probably discourage that for the first 24 hours anyway. But it's an extremely robust procedure, and I like things that are sturdy and stable and not prone to anything afterwards, and for those reasons I'm quite a fan of the SMILE procedure.